What's going on today? We have the RTX 5080. This is the gaming Gigabyte OC model of the card. We'll be pairing it with the 9800X3D and 32 gigs of RAM. Everything used to create this video is linked in the description below. The only thing I want you to do is just hit that subscribe button. Let's jump into the game. All right, what's going on, everyone? We're in Alan Wake 2 today. We are on 3440 by 1440 ultra wide, and we are just going to check it out with the RTX 5080 and the 9800X3D paired with 32 gigs of RAM. All right, so right here we're just at low settings. We don't have any upscaling, and we don't have any sort of frame generation. We're just going to take it easy and run through this kind of area here. It's pretty thick, a lot of vegetation, got some reflection, so it's a pretty good test area in my opinion. And I haven't had a chance to play like a lot of this game. I'm too busy testing games, but you know, this is a pretty good test area in my opinion. Got a lot of things going on. But yeah, we're at 93 FPS here. And again, this is just on native resolution, no upscaling at all. So let's come down here and kind of see where this needs some help at. So let's jump up to medium. And medium looks pretty good still. This title's not very fast-paced by any means. So, you know, you don't really need to have 200 FPS. But, you know, it is nice to be above 60 most of the time. Until you kind of need some DLSS and that kind of stuff, then we can bring it back up a little bit. But we're just going to keep going until we obviously need to do some upscaling. So let's just jump over into it. Let's go down here, come down to high. So we're just going to go to high. High preset does not max everything out completely. So we're just going to take a look at that once we run through this high. I'll just call that ultra up top. You know, if I've got everything maxed out, I'll just refer to that as ultra to make things easier. All right, so 86 FPS down here, 84 FPS. Yeah, we're not going to have a problem really without any ray tracing. Now, once ray tracing comes in, we're definitely going to need to upscale. I've got the PCL indicated up there at 32 milliseconds. It kind of blinks in and out a little bit. It's not super stable, but it does give you some insight into what to expect as far as a response time. And it's pretty responsive. Anything under 50 milliseconds, in my opinion, is perfectly okay, especially for a game like this on a controller. I tend to play games like this on a pair of sticks versus a mouse and keyboard. It's just more comfortable to me. But to each their own. It should be just fine on a mouse and keyboard as well if that's your style. All right, so yeah, we're looking like about 80 FPS. I'm going to turn this down a little bit so that I'm not distracted. It can happen. I'm easily distracted. All right, there we go. That's a little quieter. All right, so we're at about 79 FPS here, so nothing too bad at all. Let's go to what I refer to as the ultra setting. So let's bring everything up to high. Anything that is not on high, we're going to bring it up. All right, so all this stuff, you got some lighting, post-processing quality, shadow resolution, bring that up. Okay, so this is ultra without any ray or path tracing. All right, so that's going to drop us a little bit, but still pretty good. I mean, we're still at 71 FPS here in the thick of it. There's a lot of vegetation in this game, and that is quite hard to run. So, you know, as you traverse through the woods here, you notice that frame time graph. It's dead flat, very, very nice to see. And our PCL is at 40 milliseconds. All right, so right here, we're just going to check out some ray tracing and see what we need to do as far as upscaling once we enable that, because it's going to hit our performance pretty hard. So let's jump over there and do that now. Ray tracing in this game is very intensive. Even for the age of this game, it's still considered one of the harder games to run, especially when ray tracing is enabled. So I'm going to enable that ray tracing, set it to low. Of course, that automatically turns on your ray reconstruction and your direct lighting. We're not messing with path tracing right now. That will come in once we start to bring these presets up a little bit more. All right, so let's just jump into it. All right, so we went from 70s to 40s just with low ray tracing, not even path tracing. So as you can see, this is going to be tricky to navigate, just to make sure that we can get a good experience still without the need to go like really, really crazy on our frame generation. But you know, for the most part, I'm just keeping an eye on that PCL. Once we turn on frame generation, we should be able to activate boost, and that will bring that PCL down a little bit. It's helpful when it comes to ray trace, or helpful when it comes to path tracing and ray tracing, because you obviously likely need to frame generate whenever you're on those settings for most titles, at least. Brute forcing your way through these things is kind of a thing of the past, in my opinion. Unless we want 1800 watt graphics cards, we're just going to have to upscale and use frame gen, especially at these higher resolutions. All right, so down here, I'm just going to kick it over and turn on some of this ray tracing a little bit higher, you know, kind of go up a little bit on that preset. This is medium ray tracing, and as you can see, that is going to manipulate our path tracing. So these are kind of a preset right here for all this other stuff. So we're just going to stick to it there. All right, so that is 27 FPS, 29 FPS. So we're definitely going to have to upscale. 30 FPS is not ideal on a 5080, but you know, ray tracing and path tracing especially are no joke. They are extremely intensive. You're talking about tracing billions of light rays all over this scene and calculating how they interact with different textures and colors and where they bounce to. I mean, when you think about it, it's quite nuts that this game even runs at all, or that any game runs at all with path tracing. It's just a mind-blowing feat of technology, in my opinion. So let's just keep on going and see what we need to do. So we probably need to introduce some upscaling. How much upscaling, that's going to be the question. We're just going to start with quality here. That gives us a nice boost up to 52 FPS-ish. VRAM allocation is still looking really good. Usage is still really good. So we're looking fine as far as smoothness goes. You know, you could frame generate from here. 50 FPS is a nice base frame rate to generate from in a game like this, and your PCL is right there around 50 milliseconds, which is kind of the sweet spot. That's where I like to be. All right, so if we are happy here, these are our current settings. So we got everything, you know, again, ultra mode, everything's completely maxed out. But what we want to do is see how far we can take path tracing and ray tracing and how much DLSS we're going to have to use. So going up to high, if you go up to high, that's obviously going to bring your path tracing of your indirect lighting up to high as well. Transparency is on high. Everything is completely maxed out right here. And we may manipulate some of this later on just to see if we can get like what the best settings would be, in my opinion. You know, for what it's worth, that's just my opinion. That's kind of the way I run this thing, is at the end I kind of give you a how I would play it section. All right, so with quality DLSS in the current settings, that drops us a little bit. Still not terrible. 50 FPS is not too bad in this title. It's playable. It's easily frame generatable from. I just made that word up, but you know what I mean. You can frame generate from 45, 50 FPS on this and still have a really good experience, again, because it's just not a fast-paced game at all. So, you know, when it comes to frame generation, I typically analyze the type of game it is, the speed at which you would play such a game, what the reaction time needs to be. Is it competitive or not? Is it something you need like the best, highest frame rate for? If the answer is no, then frame generation, you know, to the rescue is kind of my rule of thumb. I obviously don't want the PCL to get too high. I don't want the controls to feel sloppy, but you know, you can definitely get away with a lot of frame generation in a title this slow. So let's just bring this down to balanced. See what kind of uptick that gives us. See if we can get around 60. Okay, there we go. We got around 60, 64 FPS here. So that's not a bad setting either. Again, without any frame generation at all, we're still around mid 50s to low 60s, which in a game like this, again, is perfectly okay. I'm going to run into this building here and see if we get an uptick as far as performance goes, because again, we're limiting that view distance, and the assets can obviously load in a little easier. We got our flashlight on in here, just trying to get some lighting effects to do their thing. But yeah, 80 FPS inside this you know, closed off environment, which that's not bad. But once you come out here, of course, it'll drop back down because you got all this vegetation and view distance and draw distance to factor in. So it's definitely going to take a hit there. All right, so let's jump down to the next level of, or not down to, but up to the next level of ray tracing, which of course would be ray tracing ultra. Let me get my mouse out. It's not really wanting to click it. There we go. All right, so ultra ray tracing, ultra path tracing, ultra transparency, Everything is completely topped out up here, so there's no harder way to run this. We're going to see what happens on balanced DLSS, and that gives us 56 FPS. All right, so again, you're upscaling a little bit. Balanced is definitely something that looks good still, and you're not relying on any frame generation at the moment. So promising, we're going to get there. I think some frame generation would really just smooth this whole experience out. 60 FPS is more than enough, but the higher the better, especially when you're not using motion blur and you're kind of like flipping the camera back and forth. It kind of looks a little bit smudgy, but with a higher refresh rate, of course, that will tone that down a little bit. All right, so anyway, let's just jump into it. Let's go upscale one more time, go up to performance. Performance still looks quite nice. It is not obviously as sharp as like DLAA because you are at 720p, so you're, not 720p, you're upscaling from 720p to 1440. So, it's not bad. It's half, half is good, generally. 4K looks good with 1080p upscaled, so this looks pretty decent with 720p upscaled. So with this setting, you don't necessarily need frame generation, but you can up the visual quality and then enable frame generation. We're going to take a look at that just to see if that's another viable setting. So right here, I can come in here and jump down to this frame generation here. Let's check it out on these current settings. Make sure it doesn't freeze. There we go. All right, so that gives us 107 FPS, 110-ish, something like that. Used a little bit more VRAM, but we got 16 on this card, so we're A-okay there. Everything looks good, though. I mean, that has definitely smoothed it out quite a bit. The response time is still quite nice. It's at 61, 69 or so. I'd still like to get it down to 50 if we can do it, but let's check out some of these settings in here and just see if there's an option for like an NVIDIA boost or something like that. I don't think I've seen it. I know I mentioned it earlier, but now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think there is any sort of boost that we can do. Now we can go in and probably force it. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go into the NVIDIA app, force NVIDIA boost, and see if we can get this PCL down a little bit. So I'll do that and be right back. Okay, so if you are wondering, here's how you do that. So we would just go into Allen Wake 2 settings, come down here, and we're looking for the low latency mode, and we're going to change that from off right here, which is generally your global setting, and just go to ultra. That's going to force it to be as responsive as possible. So then that we have that, we're going to go through and I'm going to restart the game, and once I get back, I will continue with the test. All right, so just as a recap, here's our current setting since we did a restart. All right, so we're on performance DLSS, 2x frame generation. Everything is completely maxed out all the way down, so I'm calling this the Ultra preset. And then our ray tracing and path tracing is all maxed out as well. So this is a really, really intensive way to run this with a 2x frame generation. Now that got our PCL down to about 49, which is a nice improvement. 64 was previous, and now we're in the 40s. So that is again a nice improvement there. So the override really does come into play here when it comes to latency. It does improve your experience a good bit. So if you kind of remember, we were creeping up there, 60s to low 70s on our PCL. So this got it down to a much more manageable 56 at times. I like to be at 50, but with frame generation, you kind of have to give up a little bit. And again, this is a game that does not require super fast reflexes by any means, so I think this would be perfectly fine and an acceptable way to play this title. So let's just jump in here and go over to the 4X. So let's go ahead and set that to 4X, see what kind of maximum frame rate we can expect and what it does with our PCL. PCL stays around 60, 59, so that gives us 209 FPS here. So what I want to do now is explore quality DLSS, but with some frame generation to kind of see what our PCL does and see if that's a viable way to play this title while getting that, upscaling quality back up. All right, so quality DLSS, we're going to turn the frame gen off just to kind of get like a baseline of where we were at. So we were around 46 FPS. So in my opinion, I think that is a perfectly good state to frame generate from, especially if you're on a controller. Now, mouse and keyboard, you might not like it too much, but you know, that's kind of why I show everything. This game is definitely, you know, something that I personally would enjoy more on a controller. It just seems more comfortable, and you have more access to the ability to, you know, access your items and equipment and do your shooting and running around and that kind of thing. So yeah, this is kind of how I would play it, is on a controller. But yeah, let's jump over and see what we can do with some frame gen. Again, this is completely maxed out, a perfectly acceptable quality upscale. Nothing wrong with that at all. Let's go to 2x, kind of recap here. So we got everything completely maxed out still. Nothing at all has been changed other than the DLSS level, and of course we did the frame generation on 2x. So that gives us 62 milliseconds with a very sharp image. I like to come over to these fences and stuff, these thinner elements, this barbed wire up here. No visual breakdown really at all. Everything looks nice and tidy. Not getting any kind of weird anomalies or anything. Quality DLSS is just phenomenal. I mean, it just looks so good. I am overriding this with DLSS 4, by the way. You know, if you missed that in the description down below, I'm saying it now, but DLSS 4 has, you know, been implemented this entire time, and it looks just so great. But yeah, these nice reflections, this water looks so good. You know, this is definitely a good way to play it. Let's jump up to that 4x though and see what we can expect there. So let's go to 4x frame generation. Again, everything is completely maxed out, and we are sitting pretty nice, 150 FPS. Now our PCL did take a hit. We're at 82 milliseconds. That might be unacceptable for some people, but again, on a controller, I don't notice a thing. It feels perfectly acceptable, feels really, really nice. I can generally tolerate around 80 anyway on mouse and keyboard, so the fact that I am on a controller makes it just a non-existent issue for me. But yeah, everything looks really, really good. I'm going to try another setting just kind of off the top of my head here, because let's turn off this frame gen. Go down here, because some of you have been asking, like, hey, what about like a more, you know, instead of just going all out, let's go to like a medium. All right, there, and then let's enjoy a little bit of ray tracing, but just go to that medium ray tracing. So this is kind of just a medium all the way through setting. So everything has been set to whatever the medium preset determines is, you know, falls in that category. Again, we're on a quality upscale because that is more than acceptable in this title. It looks really, really good. And with no frame generation, that gives us about a 52 FPS, you know, kind of base rate. Now, if you remember, everything completely jacked all the way up to the top was around 45. So, you know, it does improve. However, it's up to you to decide if that improvement is worth, you know, giving up ultra everything and going back down to your medium preset. But now, you know, this does have some ray tracing in there, so you could up the ray tracing a little bit if you're really into that kind of thing, or just up the actual quality of the preset. So let's just do a little bit of exploration, just because, you know, I like to maybe cover it all. What if we just went up to high but left ray tracing on medium? That gives us roughly the same type of scenario depending on where you're at. 51 FPS. Your PCL is around 50, so that's pretty good, definitely acceptable. All right, so 56 FPS here. All right, so you could definitely frame generate off that. I'm just trying to see what like a base frame rate would do with some of these settings that we have at our disposal here. So what about a high preset up here with a high ray tracing preset, which that's not ultra, it's just one below it. And, you know, as you can see, you're not getting a huge FPS difference. And your PCL is still around 50 milliseconds. So I don't think that these settings are necessarily that far apart. They're far more incremental. Usually like medium, high, ultra are pretty close, and low is just like, you know, just praying for it to run. You just put it on low settings. So generally I don't like to even consider low settings, especially on these on newer cards. But right here you're at 57 FPS, no concerns at all with your VRAM. So I just kind of wanted to show, like, even though you lower it, quite a bit, it doesn't necessarily give you that big a difference, especially whenever you're going to frame generate anyway, other than a little bit of your PCL comes back. Now what you can do here is, of course, you've got more upscaling, so you can go to that balanced, and that's going to give you a decent little tick, but not too much again. It's like 5 FPS is all. But it does help your PCL, and your PCL is much more under control. So maybe a balanced upscale would be a pretty good idea to go with if you want to enjoy, you know, kind of the high setting with a lot of ray tracing. So right here, we're just going to come down here. So everything's set to high, not the ultra. I'm not going fully all the way out, but I am going to turn on some of this ultra ray tracing and see what that looks like. So ultra ray tracing drops us to about 55 FPS. Again, this is a balanced upscale. So with everything set to high and your ray tracing set to ultra, you can come in here and do a little bit more upscaling and probably get a really nice visual image with, you know, kind of most or all of the bells and whistles turned on. And that gives your PCL a really, really nice improvement. You're at 38 milliseconds, so if you are a mouse and keyboard player, I feel like this is kind of your setting. I would definitely use that performance DLSS. It still looks just really, really good. You know, probably indistinguishable unless you were looking like side-by-side comparison or zooming in at like 10x. You know, I mean, everything, again, the game matters. The art direction matters with this kind of stuff. This is a heavily textured game, a lot of natural scenery. Plenty of, you know, plant life and ground cover, so the slightest bit of edge blur from a DLSS upscale will not be that noticeable versus a game like Ratchet and Clank, where you've got like super crisp cartoon-like lines, where you do notice it in something like that. But a game like this with this art direction and this style, you're just, I don't notice it. You don't notice it. I mean, I'm just going to come out and say, like, unless you're really studying, like, the way the plants are and the little fringes of the leaves compared to, like, the background, I mean, if you're into that, then that's fine. You're pixel peeping, and that there are folks out there that want, like, the absolute most perfect thing ever. But, you know, for me, the performance you get, the response time you get by just going down to a performance upscale dramatically outweighs the slightest bit of graphical changes. Even then, I hate to even call them a change. It's just like a slight difference. I mean, right here, you're on performance upscale, and this barbed wire looks just as good as it did on quality. You know, and that's kind of where you're going to see those details get lost, is in those thin little lines like fences and barbed wire and edges of leaves and that kind of thing. So this is a really great setting here. You know, if you wanted a high response time, this is what I would go with. And of course, you can just 4x this thing and just enjoy the hell out of this game. 204 FPS. That did bring our PCL back up a little bit, but again, if you're on a controller, it really doesn't matter too much. But you could just, you know, not use frame generation and enjoy a little bit faster PCL. But yeah, this has been kind of a good look here at Alan Wake 2 at this resolution. I'm going to be doing way more widescreen testing. It's a resolution that I don't see often being tested, so I want to make sure to jump into that area for you guys. And yeah, if you enjoy this video, I just ask that you please click that little subscribe button. That helps me out more than you know. It helps me get the subscriber count up to where I can finally potentially monetize the channel and then be able to really start testing out different things like older GPUs, older CPUs, doing like custom builds, and, you know, potentially giving away stuff. Like any kind of subscription helps me get to the goal of where I really want this channel to be, which is really huge and really like a you know, kind of anchor point in the GPU, CPU, PC gaming space. So if you could help me do that, that would be amazing. Of course, everything that I have in this title that I'm using to test is linked in the Amazon links below. By clicking any of those, of course, you do help the channel out. No more expense to you. And not a lot of people know this, but you don't even have to buy the thing you clicked on. You could click on RTX 5080 and go buy yourself a cat bed, and that would give me a little bit of cash to put back into the channel and start looking at getting these super cards that are on the horizon. Those are going to be pretty nice little chunk of change. So anything you do helps the channel, and I will of course fold it back into the channel to make the videos better and to make the testing better. So thanks for listening to my conclusion. And of course, thank you so much for watching all my videos and all the comments. I try to read every single one of them and respond to everyone. And thanks for the positivity. Let's keep it light and keep testing some games. So yeah, I'm gonna close out with that, and we will see you guys in the very next video. Peace.